This empty chair represents the addict who died today, not knowing recovery was possible.
Hi, my name is Phil Leahy. I'd like to welcome you to another episode of The Empty Chair. Unfortunately, my daughter Colleen, who is usually with me every episode, she's feeling a little under the weather, so we're going to have to carry on without her. As we always remind you, if you haven't caught some of our earlier episodes, you can go to YouTube and search The Empty Chair Show. I think there's like 22, 23 episodes on there. You can look at them, get caught up. We cover all different aspects of addiction and recovery. Tonight, unfortunately, this episode is going to tell us why this empty chair is here. We're going to have another episode. We're going to put a face and we're going to put a name on the empty chair. And I can't tell you how courageous it is for families to come in here and talk about someone who a loved one they've lost with the disease of addiction. So I'm really excited and very grateful to welcome Susan and her son Roger to our show, and I thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting us.
We're going to kind of start off like we usually do. Your son, Chad, did die from the disease of addiction. Why don't you fill us in, Chad, before addiction?
Chad, normal birth, very happy toddler, moved right along in life, very energetic, very happy. Outdoors all the way, four-wheelers, ski mobile, swimming, sports, you name it. That was Chad before his addiction. Very well liked, very respected by a lot of people. And he showed everybody else respect until his addiction hit him. Okay,
now, when did he start to experiment with?
May I read this part from his journal?
I wish, that's right, yeah. She does have a journal from her son, and we're probably going to refer to it a couple of times, but you do that whenever you want, Susan.
Okay. Actually, in Chad's journal, he was age 14, and he writes, "My demon, your fiery enrage has burned inside of me since I was little. You first corrupted me at 14. Ever since then, you blanked with my head, always trying to pull me down to the fiery depths of hell. They say you can't predict your future, but you can make steps to make what you think your future might be. Going in full force this time, going to fight this demon, this keeps burning inside of me for so long, going in with a lot of rage, guilt, and shame, hoping to come out with a little courage, hope, and faith." And that was like the beginning of his journal. And like I said, he was 14 years old, and he started with different prescriptions, and alcohol was his big one. And he writes about the alcohol in his journal as well, that he would drink until he blacked out. Yeah. So it was a real struggle for him. We did send him to Outward Bound. When he was 16, we put him on a plane, and he did an Outward Bound program for 31 days, and he backpacked in El Paso, Texas. And he loved it, you know, but he was productive because he was busy. And then he came back and he did pretty well in school, and then it just started all over again. And we did rehabs, and we did so much to try to help, but he had to do it on his own. And one of the fights he did write again about in his journal is that rehabs are not working for me because I am the type of person who cannot sit still. I need structure, and I need to be outside. I cannot be sitting in meetings all the time. So that was another heartbreak part that he had written.
You know, it's absolutely amazing that a 14-year-old kid would actually start a journal.
Yeah.
That's, and I've dealt with a lot of addicts and recovering addicts on this show, but this is truly
Yeah,
amazing.
and it's actually, when Chad had passed on the 28th, the police department asked me if they could take his journal and read it, and I said yes, and I said do not, you know, destroy anything in it. And they brought it back to me, and the detective sat with me for a good 45 minutes, and I thought he was going to cry. He said it's so dark and deep. He said, I never realized what addiction has done to people. We hear about it, but unless you're experiencing it, you don't realize what they go through.
You know, it's funny, I do remember, you know, my daughter, she OD'd and didn't die.
Right.
But I know when she was living with us, my wife would do a little sneaking around like parents tend to do. And she did find a journal of my daughter's. And you're right, it's very dark and deep and so forth like that. So, but I'm going to go to Roger. Now, Roger, you said you were 10 years older than Chad?
10 years, yes.
Okay, and just so people know, Roger is also a recovering addict.
Yep.
And obviously you had the occasion where you and your brother used together. You being the older brother, and I want people to understand just how powerful addiction is. Now, obviously, you don't want your brother to use, but yet you're using. How did this just kind of come together, you and your brother, like that?
It was kind of like, I knew he was doing it, and he knew. He grew up, we were close together. We were very close. We were 10 years, we both lived at the house. You know, I have two older brothers, but they moved on, moved out. So we were always together, you know. So then I just started, I knew he was using, I was using, so we just came together and we started using together, and, you know, that was our downfall. You know, and it was hard, and it was like, you know, he always said, he was like, I'll never do what you do, you know, because he knew what I was doing, you know, even though he was at a young age. Yeah, like I said, I was 10 years older than him, so when I was using, when I first started using, I was 18, and then it just progressed, and then he got older, and he's seen, you know, the IV use, you know, try to hide it from him, but it just didn't happen. He was always on the sneak, like he was always in the move, you know, he was always trying to hide it from Mom, hide it from Chad, but it didn't work. So, and then we just started hanging out, and it just led to, you know.
Now, Susan, now you have two boys, one an older one, who you obviously knew about. I mean, what was your reaction? Now, you knew that Roger was using, you know, like I said, you were 10 years older than Chad, right? Now, when Chad followed the same path, that must have been pretty tough to take.
It was very difficult. My focus at first was on Roger because I knew at that point he was using heroin, and it scared the life out of me. But I kind of focused on him, like, you can't live here. We sent him to Berlin, we set him up in an apartment. You know, my focus was always on him, so I didn't see actually what was going on in Chad's life.
Right.
I could see it, but I guess maybe I didn't acknowledge it at first, you know.
She didn't want to believe it.
I didn't want to believe that
Yeah, we all do that.
Yeah, you know, I thought for sure Chad was just going to be, I hate to say it, the alcoholic of the family.
Right.
I didn't realize the depth of the drug use that Chad had started getting into until he came home one night and from a friend's house, and of course he was drunk. But then I seen this white stuff all over his nose and realized that he was snorting coke. And I was devastated. I'm like, because this is the kid that said, I'll never do drugs. I will not be like my brother. I won't do any of this. And I'm like, you know, he's going to get through this. That's why we extended, you know, the extra money, sent him to El Paso, Texas, let him learn to, you know, do the backpack and get out of here, get away from all this for a bit. And yeah, it was pretty devastating to find out the extent of his use. It was very hard.
I don't know if I'm going to try and see if I remember. Chad came out of jail?
Yes.
Okay. Now he came out of jail, and he had been in jail for how long?
Before he just recently was 4.5 months.
Okay, 4.5. So
yeah.
He had 4.5 months clean.
Yeah. Not
recovery, clean.
Clean.
Okay. Just so everybody knows, Susan is from across the border in New Hampshire. Yep. And we kind of met on a support group online, and I invited her to our support group, and this is all before Chad passed.
Yep.
And she came to a few of our meetings and has since developed her own support group, which I'm absolutely thrilled. And a lot of this happened. A lot of the things she's doing has happened after Chad has passed.
Yes.
It's
real hard.
You know, I've you know, you met Bessie Cody.
Yep.
I'm amazed at the courage that the two of you have after losing someone to actually intensify the fight you have against substance abuse. So I just wanted to get that in.
Thank you. But I'm modeling your group.
Well,
because it was
thank you. We
amazing.
appreciate that. Now, he came out, and we have talked about this before, that when kids, and their kids, when they come out of jail, and even more so in New Hampshire, because you know we've talked about that also, they come out, and although they've been clean 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, they're just kind of set out free. You know, they're not put. And basically, your son came home, and what happened roughly a couple of days later?
Yeah, he turned 25 on the 24th, which was a Thursday. He got out of jail on the 25th. In fact, I had written him a letter. He did read it. We went out for dinner that night. Saturday was an amazing family day. We had a great time together. Sunday afternoon, he picked up the phone and left my house and came back and found him Monday morning. Yeah. So, and like you know, it's like, what best friend would take you after having 4.5 months of just being clean, other than somebody else who uses?
Right. And it's true. I mean, it's such a powerful drug. Now, Roger, you had a similar thing. You came out of jail, right? But yet, you didn't pick up.
Well, to be honest, we were in together. Not in the same charge, just I was in for 8 months, well, about 6 months, no, 6 months?
Well, 6 months.
5 months, and then Chad ended up coming into Brentwood on a probation violation. And, you know, we became roommates on Center Side. And it was actually a good time because that was the first time in a long time that me and him got to hang out clean.
Clean, yeah.
You know, and it was a blast, you know. We worked out every day, and it was a good time, you know.
Now, did he get out before you, or did you?
Yeah.
Okay, so when he got out, you were still in.
Yep.
So while you're still in, you hear that.
Yeah, it was. You know, he left on that Friday, and I was supposed to get out that following Thursday. And you know, he's like, because I was working, and I came to say goodbye to him, and I said, you know, I gave him a big hug, and I said, I love you, and I'll see you in a week. And that Monday. That Monday morning, you know, I got called down to the CO's desk, like, oh, well, you got to go to the chaplain, talk to the chaplain. I was like, well, why do I need to go talk to the chaplain for? You know, and one of the kids goes, well, you should. Maybe something happened at home. You know, what could happen at home? You know, I didn't know. And then I went in there, and he talked to me for like 10 minutes, and then he brought up, you know, your little brother that's passed away, and it was like, I just couldn't believe it. Didn't want to face it. I just couldn't believe, because you know, being his roommate, we talked about a lot of things, and he was always, you know, I got to do this. I got to do it this time. You know, I'm clean, and he's like, I know it's going to be hard, and I said, I know it is going to be hard. You know, and that was like kind of like a big step for me. It's a kind of it's hard, but I mean, even though he passed away, it was kind of like a big step for me. Like, you know, that could have been me. You know, could it be any of us? You know, and it's hard that it was my little brother. You know, and it's too close to home.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So
way too close to home.
The last time you saw him was when he got out of jail.
Yeah. You know, and it was like, you know, when he first came in, I got him on the block that we were on, and you know, and then he left, and I missed him. You know, it was like, it was like 4 days of like, oh, I missed the kid, you know, because we had such a good time. You know, we always just talking and joking around, and we didn't have that. You know, now it's like,
and you know, and I shouldn't say I can understand, but I can see how, you know, all the years that you were using, that you were, you know, that you was getting high, and then to have those few months together when the cobwebs were gone, and he was your little brother and you were his big brother, and it was, you had something in common other than
Yeah.
the drug.
Yeah, because
So-
it was like when we were always out, it'd be like, oh, I'm sick too, and we'd figure out a way to get money, you know, and it was just the brother thing, you know, and it was hard, and it just...
You know, obviously, it breaks my heart that you lost your brother, but I am glad that you at least got a few months to be real brothers.
Yeah. Well, because we weren't, I mean, we were obviously brothers, but when we were out there using together, it wasn't, we were always fighting, over it. It was just a drug, doing to us. We were always fighting, not getting along, but, it was just like, in just those 4 months, it was great.
So obviously when you got out, your brother's death has that had, and I hate to say positive, but has that had a positive impact on you to not pick up yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's a struggle every day. It's really a struggle every day, and it's like work, and then, she's always doing her thing, and it just to be there for my parents, my mother and my father, that's just, it's a big step for me, and it just like, and I see how much it hurts them with Chad being gone, because Chad was the baby of the family, there was 4 of us, and so it's hard, and it was just like, but it was, I don't know, it's like...
It's impacted him in a positive way. He's very supportive at home. He was my date to go to the anonymous showing of the anonymous people. But he's very supportive to try to keep things right. And he has numbers and a phone number to call for like a recovery coach. So when he's ready, I'm hoping he does that, just to have somebody to talk to. I know when Chad did come out and we went out for dinner on that Friday night, we went outside for a few minutes, and he said to me, Mom, if I was a millionaire, I said, what would you do, Chad? He goes, I would open a safe home. I goes, well, our home is safe. We love you. He goes, yes, it is, but not to me, because I'm an addict. I cannot live in my environment anymore. He said, and he says pretty much everybody that I know, everybody that's in jail should not go home. They should not go back to their environment. He says, I said, well, I'll give you a plane ticket tomorrow to go to Alaska. Let's get you on a plane, get you out of the environment, But that was his dream. He said, if I get my head together and if I can get alone, I'm opening a safe house. He says, and that's what it will be called, Chad Safe House. He says, because people need a place to go, and they need a place to get their life back and not be in their home environment. And, I said, but Chad, that's kind of hard for me to swallow because you were in safe rehabs. He goes, I was. He says, but you know me, I can't sit like that all day long. I have to move. I have to be active. There was one rehab I really thought was going to work for Chad because they were very active. They did their meetings. They went swimming. They did basketball. They went to, got in a van and went to another meeting. So he was more active. But a lot of the other rehabs that he did attend wasn't as active. And they would be in-house too much, and he could not deal with that. So then he'd fall right back off.
Yeah, and and the shame of it is, so many people, okay, and you can probably speak on this a bit, Roger. I talk to so many people who I don't think they quite understand how powerful the addiction is. Now, you've been clean roughly 11 months now, Roger?
About that, yeah.
Now, what a lot of people are going to say, well, if you're clean, if you haven't been for 11 months, then you should be done. Can you explain how powerful, even though you don't have the physical addiction now, how powerful is this addiction that it's still, like you said, every day is work to keep? Why is that? And I know the answer, but I want you, in your words, I want you to explain to me, if you have 11 months clean, why is it still such a problem to stay away from it?
It's the drug. It's the drug. It's the high, and just the feeling of being in. You know, if you got issues going on, you know, you might go get high and all those feelings will go away, you know, the problems will go away just for that day, and then the next day will come and it'll be like, oh boy, everything's back already. And it was that cycle, you know, and it just never stops. You know, I'd work and then I'd do good for like a few months, and then I'd be on the Suboxones and I'd throw the Suboxones out, you know, and I'd just go get high again. You know, and it's been a long time, you know. I've been getting high since I'm 35, I'm getting high since I'm 18. Yeah. You know, it's been a long time.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, and it's the drug is so powerful, people don't realize how powerful it is.
So even though you're not getting physical withdrawals in your brain, it's bringing you back to the days, maybe you can do it just one time, or do you ever say that to yourself? Maybe I can just do it once or twice and...
I do, but I know the last run I had, it had a hold of me bad. And like I could have been dead or be in prison for a long time, and it just had a hold of me so bad, and for like 2 years, you know, and it was bad, and I feel good now, you know. I'm not fighting the sickness every day. I feel good. I can get up and go to work every day, and not, you know, oh, I'm sick today. I call my boss today. You know, my boss hired me back 3 times. Right. You know, so this last time he had me back, he was like, so how's your addiction going? I'm like, I told him it was good. I just got out of jail. And he's like, well, I'd love to have you back. Yeah. You know, and he, you know, asked me here and there how I'm doing here and there. I tell him I'm doing good, you know. And so, because one of his relatives is a drug addict too, so he's kind of got the, you know,
he has an understanding.
Yeah, understanding about it.
That
so
helps a lot.
It does.
Because there's not a lot of... Now, Susan, you lost Chad, okay? Now you've got Roger, who's got some pretty good clean time. But I'll bet you're not really secure about everything just yet, are you?
No.
No.
No, I'm not. I mean, Roger, before he was in jail, he used to live in our basement, so he had his own apartment. And me being the parent, I don't care what the law says, I rummaged and went through stuff to, just to say, yes, you know, I'm throwing these needles out, I'm dumping this out. I don't care what they feel like when they get home. But when Roger was being released with Chad, and when I'd go visit them in jail, I would say, you know, when you get out, you don't live in that apartment anymore. That is gone. That's the dungeon. That's where the demon lives. You're not living in there anymore. And he goes, thank you, I don't want to. So that kind of made me feel good. So now he's actually living in the regular part of the house upstairs in one of the bedrooms with us. But there is those days where I'm like, oh, why is he talking so fast? And I would really look at him and like, oh, and then...
Don't let it Colleen's the fastest talker I've ever seen in my life. We only have about 5 minutes left. Is there anything in there that particularly that you might want to read from his journal?
I think there might be one little part, and I should have actually just kind of documented it. We always think that addicts don't feel, but they do. Chad wrote a real good part in here, and I should have marked it. The guilt. He talks about his guilt, how pain, you know, just the guilt of his addiction and what he's done to the family, and most important, what he's done to his own life. And he did write in a part in here that he had such an amazing life that he wanted to take it back, but he couldn't because the demon was too strong. Wow. Yeah, it's really, you know, because it's thinking when they were high, you know, they would act so weird, like dancing, singing, or, you know, not even talking normal. And then when they come off, like Chad would sit down and pretty much almost bawl his eyes out and say, I can't get rid of this.
Do you think, you know, and it's hard to say in hindsight, do you think maybe it was just so powerful on him that he just kind of gave up?
I do. To some points I do, because he did write part of that in here that if he doesn't find the right help or if he doesn't stop, he's never going to come back.
Wow.
And
you know, and it's amazing that someone who is using still had the vision to describe what was happening to him.
He did describe a lot about the pain. when he didn't have, how he would take things and he'd feel guilty because he stole from us or, you know, whatever, to get his drugs. And I was knocking down doors at drug dealers, and he had written about that. He said he would have killed himself if somebody ever would have hurt his mother. And then how upset he was because he was hurting his dad, who is a big influence in his life as well. So, I mean, when you stop and think of people that have addictions, you go, oh, they have no feelings, they don't even care. But in reality, my son did care, but he couldn't stop. So, yeah, there was a lot.
We only have 2 minutes
That's
left.
fine.
I told you, this goes fast.
It does go too fast.
It goes real quick.
I can't, you know what I feel about you,
Yep.
obviously. I mean,
Yeah.
I think you are an incredibly courageous woman.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have the opportunity to work with you. By the way, she also belongs to the Merrimack Valley Prevention and Substance
I
Abuse
do.
Project. She's a member of our community group
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
And we're so happy to have her. And again, Roger, I commend you for coming down because I know it's not easy, obviously, to talk about your baby brother.
Yep.
I am so glad that you did at least have a few months together where, you know, like I say, where the cobwebs are gone.
Yeah, normalness.
Yeah, and I pray for you, as I know
Yeah.
Susan does.
Thank you.
That you know, that you keep on the road. She'll be telling us when you get your 1 year.
Yeah.
We'll be absolutely
We'll be
looking forward
blowing
to
up
that.
balloons.
Folks, I want you to know the courage it takes for people to come down, to go public, and to speak about someone who they've lost.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't a bad kid.
Nope.
He was a normal, everyday kid, made a mistake, got caught up. That's all it's about. It doesn't, you don't have to be a bad person to be an addict. Once you become an addict, you may become a bad person, but that's not the story. So Susan, Roger, thank you again.
Thank you.
Like I say, you're one of my heroes.
No, you're my hero.
Thank you.
And
I appreciate it.
I do thank you for coming down. That pretty much wraps up our show for tonight. I hope you join us next month. Colleen, I'm sure, will be here with me. And in the meantime, you can be sure that Susan, along with a lot of other parents, are going to be advocating
Yes.
against this deadly disease. Thank you and good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.